Imagine thinking you found the perfect prey, a defenseless human woman alone on a backwater planet. You're a seasoned Kralian hunter, part of a species that has terrorized the galaxy for centuries. Your claws are sharp, your reflexes deadly, and you've never met a species that could match your speed or strength. But what happens when that woman's husband comes home? What happens when you discover that humans aren't the weak, fragile creatures the galaxy believes them to be? What happens when you realize that attacking his wife was the biggest mistake any predator could ever make? In the vast expanse of space, there are apex predators. And then there are humans protecting the ones they love. This is the story of how one alien's worst day became humanity's first step toward galactic legend. The twin sons of Kepler. 442b cast long shadows across the settlement as evening approached. Sarah Chan wiped her hands on her gardening apron, surveying the small plot of vegetables she and Marcus had managed to coax from the alien soil. The tomatoes were finally turning red, and the cornstalk swayed gently in the warm breeze. It had taken 3 years, but they were finally making this place feel like home. The frontier colony of New Haven was small, barely 200 souls scattered across the valley. Most were families like hers and Marcus, seeking a fresh start far from the overcrowded inner worlds. The planet was beautiful in its own way, with purple-tinted grass and twin moons that painted everything in silver light during the long nights. But it was remote, sitting at the very edge of human space where the Galactic Council's protection was more theory than practice. Sarah gathered the last of the ripe vegetables into her basket and headed toward their modest prefabricated home. Marcus wouldn't be back from the mining station for another 2 hours, and she wanted to surprise him with a proper dinner. He'd been working double shifts lately, trying to build up their savings for the expanded homestead they'd been planning. The man pushed himself too hard sometimes, but that was just his way. 20 years in the Earth Defense Corps had taught him that everything worth having required sacrifice and dedication. As she climbed the steps to their front porch, Sarah noticed something odd. The family dog, Scout, was nowhere to be seen. The old retriever mix usually greeted her at the garden gate, tail wagging and ready for his evening treats. She called his name, listening carefully, but heard nothing except the distant hum of the settlement's power grid and the chirping of alien insects that emerged at dusk. A chill ran down her spine that had nothing to do with the cooling air. Scout was getting old, true, but he was still protective of their property. In all their years on New Haven, he'd never failed to greet her return from the garden. Sarah set down her basket and walked around the house, calling more urgently now. She found him behind the storage shed, lying motionless in the purple grass. At first glance, he appeared to be sleeping, but as she knelt beside him, Sarah saw the truth. 3 parallel gashes ran across his throat, clean and precise. Whatever had killed him had done so quickly and quietly. The blood in the wounds was already beginning to congeal, telling her this had happened within the last hour. Sarah's hands trembled as she examined the cuts. They were too regular to be from any natural predator, too clean to be from the local wildlife they'd learned to avoid. These looked almost surgical, made by something with razor-sharp claws and the knowledge of exactly where to strike for a quick kill. The settlement had been peaceful for years. The indigenous life forms were mostly small and harmless, and the bigger predators avoided the valley where humans had established their homes. The Galactic Council maintained regular patrol routes through this sector, and New Haven's automated defense grid was supposed to keep out any unwanted visitors. Sarah tried to think of rational explanations, but her mind kept returning to the stories she'd heard from other frontier colonies. Stories of raiders and slavers who preyed on isolated human settlements. She was reaching for her communicator to call the settlement's security office when she heard it, a low, rumbling sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. It was unlike anything in her experience, too deep to be mechanical, too rhythmic to be natural. The sound raised every primitive alarm in her nervous system, triggering fight-or-flight responses that evolution had burned into her DNA. Sarah stood slowly, every sense straining to locate the source of that ominous rumble. The evening air seemed suddenly thicker, charged with an electric tension that made her skin crawl. The normal sounds of the settlement had gone quiet, as if the entire colony was holding its breath. That's when she saw them, eyes reflecting the dying sunlight from the shadow of the storage shed. They were larger than any Earth animal, set in a skull that was definitely not human. As she watched in frozen terror, a shape emerged from the darkness, moving with fluid grace that spoke of perfect muscular control and predatory confidence. The creature stood nearly 7 feet tall, its body covered in dark scales that shifted color like oil on water. Its limbs were elongated and powerful, ending in hands tipped with curved claws that gleamed like polished metal. But it was the head that truly terrified her. Reptilian but intelligent, with a pronounced snout filled with serrated teeth, and those eyes, cold, calculating, and utterly alien in their lack of any recognizable emotion. Sarah's mind raced through everything she knew about galactic species. The Galactic Council included dozens of intelligent races, most of them peaceful traders and explorers. But there were others. Species that existed on the fringes of civilized space, predators and raiders who saw other sentient beings as nothing more than prey or cargo. This had to be a Krylian. She'd seen the security briefings, heard the warnings about the scaled raiders who struck at isolated colonies. They were apex predators from a death world, raised from birth to hunt and kill. Their society was built around strength and dominance, and they saw peaceful species like humans as weak and ripe for exploitation. The Krylian tilted its head, studying her with the detached interest of a scientist examining a specimen. When it spoke, its voice was a deep hiss that barely resembled language. Human female, young, healthy. You will bring good price in the slave markets of Zerion Prime. Sarah's blood turned to ice. She'd heard about the slave raids, whispered stories of entire families disappearing from frontier colonies. The Galactic Council officially denied that such things still happened, but everyone on the frontier knew better. Out here, beyond the reach of patrol fleets and defense stations, the law was whatever the strongest predator decided it would be. "My husband will be home soon," she said, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. "The settlement security will notice if I'm missing." The creature's laugh was like grinding stone. "Your mate works at Mining Station 7. Shift does not end for 1 hour 43 minutes. Security patrol passed through Sector 12 minutes ago, will not return for 47 minutes. Plenty of time to complete harvest and depart." Sarah's heart sank. The alien had been watching them, studying their routines and schedules. This wasn't a random raid. It was a carefully planned abduction. The Krylian had chosen its moment perfectly, waiting until she was alone and vulnerable. "Settlement has automated defenses," she said, backing slowly toward the house. "Approach sensors, perimeter alarms. Disabled 17 minutes ago. Your primitive technology presents no challenge to Krylian infiltration systems." The creature moved with her, maintaining the same distance, like a cat playing with a mouse. "Resistance is pointless. Submit, and harvesting will be quick and painless." Sarah's mind raced. The nearest neighbor was half a mile away, too far to reach before the Krylian caught her. Her communicator was in the house, but she'd never make it through the door before those claws found her throat. Even if she could call for help, the creature was right. Security wouldn't arrive in time. But Marcus had trained her for situations like this. Not specifically alien abduction, perhaps, but he'd made sure she knew how to fight, how to survive, how to buy time when escape wasn't possible. 20 years in the Defense Corps had taught him that civilians were often the first and last line of defense in any real crisis. "You're making a mistake," she said, continuing her slow retreat. "Humans aren't as weak as you think we are." The Krylian's laugh was filled with genuine amusement. "Humans? Soft, slow, weak, good for labor, better for breeding. Your species exists only because stronger races permit it. Soon, all human colonies will serve Krylian interests." Sarah felt her back touch the wall of the house. Nowhere left to run. The alien was close enough now that she could smell its musk, see the intelligence gleaming in those predatory eyes. It was savoring this moment, drawing out her fear, like a connoisseur sampling fine wine. "Last chance," the creature hissed. "Submit willingly, and your mate lives when he returns. Resist and we take him as well. Krylian ships have need for strong male labor." That threat broke something loose inside Sarah's mind. The fear was still there, but it was joined by something else. A cold, burning rage that had nothing to do with her own safety. Marcus had given her everything. His love, his protection, his dreams of building a life together on this distant world. The thought of this monster threatening him triggered responses that were older than civilization, deeper than reason. "Go to hell," she said quietly. The Krylian struck without warning, moving faster than Sarah would have thought possible. But Marcus had taught her to expect the unexpected, to fight through surprise and terror. She threw herself sideways, feeling the wind from those deadly claws as they whistled past her face. She rolled, came up running, and sprinted for the tool shed where Marcus kept his equipment. Behind her, she heard the Krylian's roar of frustration, followed by the thunder of pursuit. The creature was faster than her, stronger than her, better equipped for violence in every way. But Sarah had two advantages. She knew this ground intimately, and she was fighting for everything she loved. The shed door was unlocked, thank God. Sarah burst through and grabbed the first weapon she could find, a plasma cutter that Marcus used for salvage work. It wasn't designed as a weapon, but the business end could slice through 2 inches of steel plate. If she could just get close enough. The Krylian appeared in the doorway, blocking her escape. In the confines of the shed it looked even larger, its scales shifting to match the shadows. Those terrible eyes fixed on the plasma cutter in her hands, and for the first time she saw something that might have been caution. "Clever little prey," it hissed. "But tools will not save you. Drop weapon, and punishment will be light." Sarah activated the cutter, its blue-white beam casting dancing shadows on the shed walls. The Krylian flinched back instinctively. Even apex predators respected the power of industrial tools. "Stay back," she warned. "I know how to use this." "As do I," the creature replied, and lunged forward with lightning speed. Sarah swung the plasma cutter in a desperate arc, but the Krylian was already moving, flowing around her attack like liquid death. A backhand blow sent her flying into the shed wall, and the cutter spun away into the darkness. Stars exploded across her vision, and she tasted blood where she'd bitten her tongue. The alien was on her before she could recover, one massive hand closing around her throat. The claws pricked her skin just enough to draw blood, a clear warning of how easily they could open her jugular. "Enough games," the Krylian growled. "You fight well for prey, but strength always prevails over cunning. Come quietly, and your death will be quick when usefulness ends." Sarah grabbed the creature's wrist with both hands, trying to relieve the pressure on her throat. The alien's skin felt like warm leather over bands of steel. This was how she was going to die, she realized. Alone, terrified, far from everyone she loved. Marcus would come home to find blood and signs of struggle, but no trace of what had happened to her. He'd blame himself, spend the rest of his life wondering if he could have saved her. The thought of Marcus living with that guilt was worse than the prospect of her own death. She stopped struggling and looked directly into the Krylian's eyes. "He's going to kill you," she said quietly. "When my husband finds out what you've done, he's going to hunt you down and kill you. And then he's going to kill every one of your kind he can find." The creature's grip tightened slightly. Brave words from dying prey. "Your mate is human. Humans do not hunt Krylians. Krylians hunt all other species." "You don't know anything about humans," Sarah gasped. "You don't know what we're capable of when you threaten our families." "I know enough. Humans are weak. Humans are slow. Humans break easily and cry for mercy. Your entire species exists only because stronger races permit it." Sarah managed to smile despite the claws at her throat.
"Keep telling yourself that."
"Right up until the moment he finds you." The Krylian studied her face, searching for signs of deception or desperate bravado. But Sarah's eyes held steady, filled with a certainty that seemed to unnerve the predator. For just a moment, doubt flickered across those alien features. Then the moment passed, and the creature's grip tightened again. No more words. Time to harvest prize and depart before mate returns. Sarah felt consciousness beginning to slip away as the pressure on her throat increased. Her vision was tunneling, and her struggles were growing weaker by the second. This was it then. She only hoped Marcus wouldn't blame himself, wouldn't let grief and guilt destroy the good man she'd fallen in love with. That's when she heard it. The distant roar of a hover truck's engine, pushed far beyond safe operating limits. The sound was growing closer fast, much too fast for normal approach to the settlement. Someone was driving, like the devil himself was on their tail. The Krylian heard it too. Its head snapped up, and those predatory eyes narrowed with calculation. The grip on Sarah's throat loosened slightly as the creature tried to identify this new factor in its carefully planned operation. Sarah knew that engine sound as well as she knew her own heartbeat. Marcus was coming home early, and he was coming hard. Somehow, someway, he'd figured out that something was wrong. Maybe the settlement's automated systems had triggered an alarm despite the Krylian's sabotage. Maybe it was just the instinct that had kept him alive through 20 years of military service. Didn't matter why. What mattered was that her husband was coming, and God help anything that stood between him and his wife. The Krylian's head tilted, listening to the approaching engine. Mathematical calculations flickered behind its eyes. Distance, time, tactical options. Its grip on Sarah's throat shifted, claws moving into position for a quick kill. "Change of plan," the creature hissed. "Mate arrives early. Must eliminate witness before extraction." Sarah saw death in those cold eyes and knew her time was up. But as the claws prepared to open her throat, she heard something that made her heart soar despite her terror. The hover truck's engine had cut off, much closer than expected. Marcus hadn't driven up to the house. He'd stopped at the edge of their property, approaching on foot. Her husband was hunting now, using every skill the Defense Corps had burned into his bones. And somewhere, out in the gathering darkness, a human apex predator was about to discover what had happened to his wife. The Kryllian heard it too. The absolute silence where engine noise had been. The kind of quiet that meant someone was moving with careful, deadly purpose. For the first time since Sarah had seen it, the alien looked uncertain. "Your mate," it hissed quietly. "He approaches with stealth. Why does prey stall predator?" Sarah's smile was fierce despite the claws at her throat. "Because you made one mistake, monster. You hurt his wife, and now you're going to learn why humans conquered their homeworld, why we spread across the galaxy, why every predator species that ever tried to wipe us out is now extinct." "Impossible. Humans are prey species." "No," Sarah whispered. "We're not prey. We're the thing that prey fears in the dark, and my husband is about to show you exactly what that means." In the distance, something metal clinked against stone, so soft that only trained ears would have caught it. The Kryllian's head swiveled toward the sound, and in that moment of distraction, Sarah knew that everything was about to change. Marcus was home, and God help the alien that had dared to threaten his wife. Marcus Chen had been 3 miles out from the settlement when the feeling hit him. It wasn't anything he could explain rationally, just a sudden, overwhelming certainty that something was wrong at home. 20 years in the Earth Defense Corps had taught him to trust that instinct. The men and women who ignored such warnings usually ended up dead. He pushed the hover truck to dangerous speeds across the rough terrain, his mind racing through possibilities. Equipment failure at the house, medical emergency, raider attack. Any number of things could go wrong on a frontier world. But as he'd approached their property, Marcus had noticed something that made his blood run cold. Scout wasn't barking. The old dog always announced his return, no matter how tired or sick he might be. Scout's silence meant one of two things. Either the dog was dead, or something was hunting on Marcus's territory that was dangerous enough to make the animal hide in terror. Marcus had killed the engine while still a quarter mile from the house and approached on foot, every sense straining for signs of threat. The landscape that had seemed peaceful and welcoming 3 hours ago now felt charged with menace. Shadows that should have been empty seemed to harbor watching eyes, and every sound made him think of footsteps or breathing that didn't belong. He'd found Scout's body behind the storage shed, and the sight of those surgical claw marks had triggered responses that were part training, part instinct, and part pure killing rage. Something alien had invaded his home, threatened his wife, murdered his dog. The rational part of Marcus's mind catalogued tactical considerations, unknown enemy, superior physical capabilities, likely technological advantages. The primitive part just wanted to find the thing that had hurt his family and tear it apart with his bare hands. Moving with skills honed by 2 decades of military service, Marcus had approached the house from the blind spot created by the storage shed. His sidearm was already in his hand, a heavy plasma pistol that he'd carried through 3 combat deployments and more firefights than he cared to remember. The weapon was illegal for civilian ownership on most worlds, but frontier colonies tended to be flexible about such regulations. Through the thin walls of the storage shed, he could hear voices. Sarah's, tense but steady, and something else that made his skin crawl. The alien voice was deep and sibilant, speaking Federation standard with an accent he didn't recognize. But the tone was unmistakable, the casual confidence of a predator discussing its prey. Marcus pressed his ear to the shed wall, listening carefully. The alien was talking about slave markets and harvesting, discussing Sarah's fate with the detached interest of a rancher evaluating livestock. Cold fury settled in Marcus's chest like a block of ice. He'd seen slave raids before, witnessed what raiders did to the people they captured. The lucky ones died quickly. "Submit willingly and your mate lives when he returns," the creature was saying. "Resist and we take him as well." Over my dead body, Marcus thought grimly. He'd been trained to fight things that were bigger, stronger, and better armed than he was. The key was to turn those advantages against the enemy, use their confidence as a weapon, make them underestimate human determination and ingenuity. He heard the sound of struggle from inside the shed, followed by Sarah's defiant curse and the crash of bodies hitting walls. His wife was fighting. Of course she was. Marcus had trained her himself, taught her never to go quietly into the dark. But he also knew she couldn't win this fight alone. Whatever was in there with her was big, fast, and built for killing. Time to even the odds. Marcus circled to the front of the shed, moving like a ghost through the gathering darkness. Through the open doorway, he could see the creature's massive silhouette. Definitely reptilian, definitely predatory, definitely focused entirely on Sarah. The thing had its back to the door, confident in its superiority, secure in the knowledge that it faced only a lone human female. That confidence was about to become a fatal weakness. Marcus raised his plasma pistol, sighting carefully on the creature's center of mass. At this range, even a glancing hit would punch through scales and deliver enough energy to drop a charging rhino. But as his finger tightened on the trigger, he heard Sarah's voice again, clearer now. "He's going to kill you. When my husband finds out what you've done, he's going to hunt you down and kill you." The alien's response was contemptuous dismissal of human capabilities. Exactly what Marcus had expected. These raiders were apex predators on their own world, probably dominant species in their local star cluster. They'd grown soft and overconfident, used to easy victories against weaker prey. That overconfidence was humanity's greatest advantage in this hostile galaxy. Marcus could take the shot now, probably kill the creature before it knew he was there. But something Sarah had said made him pause. She was buying time, keeping the alien talking, giving him the chance to gather intelligence. His wife was thinking tactically, even with claws at her throat. Definitely the woman he'd married. He listened as the creature boasted about disabling the settlement's defenses, about its knowledge of human routines and schedules. This wasn't a random attack. It was a carefully planned operation by someone who'd been watching New Haven for weeks or months. That suggested a larger threat, possibly an entire raider fleet in the outer system. Information that died with this creature would leave the settlement vulnerable to follow-up attacks. Marcus made his decision. Instead of taking the killing shot, he would capture the alien alive, extract intelligence about its ship and crew, then deal with the immediate threat to his wife. It was riskier, but the potential intelligence value was worth the additional danger. He heard the struggle escalate inside the shed, followed by an ominous silence that made his heart race. Moving faster now, Marcus reached the doorway just as the alien was adjusting its grip on Sarah's throat, positioning those lethal claws for a killing stroke. "Change of plan," the creature was hissing. "Mate arrives early. Must eliminate witness before extraction. No more time for tactical considerations." Marcus stepped into the doorway and centered his weapon on the alien's skull. "Let her go," he said quietly. The creature spun with liquid grace, still holding Sarah but positioning her body as a shield. Those predatory eyes fixed on Marcus with calculating intelligence, evaluating this new threat with the speed of a natural-born killer. "Human male," the alien said, its voice pitched low and dangerous. "Arrive earlier than predicted. Most inconvenient." Marcus kept his weapon steady, his expression calm despite the rage burning in his chest. "I said let her go. This is your only warning." The creature's laugh was like breaking glass. "Amusing. Prey species threatens apex predator. You hold projectile weapon, yes, but cannot fire without hitting female. Krillian reflexes faster than human aim." "Krillian," Marcus repeated, filing the species name away. "Long way from home, aren't you? What brings you to human space?" "Harvest," the alien said simply. "Your colony provides excellent specimens for slave markets. Female will bring high price. Strong male even better." Sarah's eyes met Marcus's, and he saw the trust there despite her fear. She believed he would save her, had absolute faith in his abilities even when facing impossible odds. That trust was worth more than his own life, and he would die before he let her down. "Here's the problem with your plan," Marcus said conversationally. "You're thinking like a predator from your homeworld, where might makes right and the strong eat the weak. But you're not on your homeworld anymore. You're in human space now, and we have different rules." The Krillian's grip tightened on Sarah's throat. "Rules mean nothing when strength is absolute. Krillian warriors have conquered 17 star systems, enslaved 42 species. Humans will join that list." "See, that's where you're wrong," Marcus replied. "Because you're making the same mistake every predator species makes when they first encounter us. You think strength is about claws and teeth and scales. You think being an apex predator makes you invincible." Marcus took a step forward, his weapon never wavering. The Krillian tensed, clearly wanting to strike, but uncertain about this human's calm confidence in the face of superior force. "But humans didn't become the dominant species on Earth because we were the strongest," Marcus continued. "We became dominant because we were the smartest, the most adaptable, the most vicious when cornered. We learned to use tools, to work together, to turn every advantage our enemies had against them." Another step forward. The shed was small enough now that Marcus could see every scale on the alien's hide, every tooth in that predatory mouth. At this range, even with Sarah as a shield, he could put a plasma bolt through the creature's brain before it could react. But he wanted information, wanted to understand the threat facing his colony. "You disabled our automated defenses," Marcus said. "Impressive. But you made one crucial mistake in your planning. Impossible. Krillian intelligence gathering is perfect. Every variable accounted for, every contingency planned. Marcus smiled, and there was nothing pleasant in the expression. You forgot to account for what happens when you threaten a human's family. The alien's eyes narrowed. Explain. On my homeworld, there were predators bigger and stronger than us. Bears that could crush a man's skull with one blow. Big cats that could move faster than human reflexes. Pack hunters that could track us for days without rest. And we wiped them all out. Marcus took another step forward, close enough now to smell the alien's musk, to see the intelligence and growing uncertainty in those predatory eyes. Not because we were stronger or faster or tougher, he continued, but because when they threatened our children, our mates, our families, we became something they couldn't understand. We became monsters. The Krillian's claws twitched against Sarah's throat. Pretty words. But words cannot defeat superior physiology. You're right, Marcus agreed. Words can't, but tools can. Intelligence can. And most importantly, absolute determination can. He could see the alien processing this information, calculating odds and outcomes. The creature was intelligent, probably highly trained, certainly experienced in combat against various species. But Marcus could also see growing doubt behind those cold eyes. The human's calm confidence in the face of superior force didn't match the Krillian's understanding of prey behavior. You know what your first mistake was? Marcus asked conversationally. Assuming that I came alone. The alien's head snapped up, suddenly aware that the conversation had gone on too long, that the human had been stalling for tactical reasons. Those predatory instincts finally overrode intellectual curiosity, and the Krillian prepared to strike. That's when Sarah demonstrated exactly why Marcus had married her. Instead of remaining passive, waiting to be rescued, she suddenly went completely limp in the alien's grip. The unexpected dead weight threw the creature off balance for just a fraction of a second, forcing it to shift position to maintain control. It was the opening Marcus had been waiting for. His first shot took the Krillian in the shoulder, spinning the creature around and loosening its grip on Sarah. The plasma bolt burned through scales and muscle like they were paper, filling the shed with the stench of cauterized flesh and alien blood. The alien roared in pain and fury, releasing Sarah to clutch at its wounded shoulder. But even injured, it was still incredibly fast. As Sarah rolled away to safety, the Krillian lunged forward with its good arm, claws extended from Marcus's throat. Marcus's second shot took the creature center mass, punching through its torso and dropping it to the shed floor. But even mortally wounded, the alien wasn't finished. It rolled, came up in a crouch, and sprang forward with the desperate fury of a dying predator. Marcus's third shot took the Krillian's head clean off. The massive body crashed to the floor and lay still, alien blood pooling around it in the dim light. Marcus kept his weapon trained on the corpse for several seconds, making sure the threat was truly ended. Only when he was certain did he holster the pistol and rush to Sarah's side. She was sitting against the shed wall, rubbing her throat and breathing heavily. There were small puncture wounds where the alien's claws had pricked her skin, but nothing serious. Her eyes were bright with adrenaline and relief, and when she looked at Marcus, he saw something that made his heart skip. Fierce pride mixed with savage satisfaction. "Are you hurt?" he asked, kneeling beside her. "I'm fine," she said, her voice slightly hoarse. "You got here just in time." Marcus helped her to her feet, checking quickly for other injuries. "I heard its engine cutting out early and knew something was wrong. Good thing I trusted my instincts." Sarah leaned against him, drawing strength from his presence. "It killed Scout. It was going to take me to some slave market. Said something about harvesting the colony." "Krillian raider," Marcus said grimly, looking down at the alien corpse. "I've heard of them, but never seen one. They usually stick to the far rim, away from council space." It said this wasn't random. They'd been watching us, learning our routines. "Marcus, there might be more of them." He nodded, his mind already shifting to tactical considerations. "We need to contact settlement security, get word to the council patrol." "If there's a raider ship in the outer system—" "Wait," Sarah said, grabbing his arm. "Before we call this in, there's something you need to know. That thing was terrified of you at the end. Not just surprised or angry. Actually frightened. I've never seen anything like it." Marcus looked at her with puzzlement. "Frightened?" "It was a Krellian warrior, probably been fighting its whole life. Why would it be afraid of a human?" Sarah's smile was fierce and proud. "Because you showed it something it didn't expect. It came here thinking humans were weak, thinking we were easy prey. But when it threatened me, when it hurt our family, you became something it couldn't understand or predict." She gestured to the alien corpse, to the precise placement of Marcus's shots, even in the confined space of the shed. That thing was bigger than you, stronger than you, armed with natural weapons that could have torn you apart. But you killed it anyway, made it look easy. And before you did, you made it doubt everything it thought it knew about humans. Marcus considered this, thinking about the alien's final moments, the way its predatory confidence had cracked when faced with human determination and tactical thinking. Maybe that's what we need to do, he said quietly. Not just to this raider, but to every predator species that thinks humans are easy targets. Show them that we're not the prey they think we are. Sarah nodded, her eyes bright with possibilities. The galaxy is full of species that see us as weak, helpless, ripe for conquest or exploitation. But they don't understand what humans are really capable of when we're pushed too far. Marcus looked down at the Krillian corpse again, thinking about the implications. This wasn't just about one raider or one threatened colony. This was about how humanity was perceived across the galaxy, about whether they would be seen as victims or survivors. We need to send a message, he said. Not just to this raider's ship, but to every predator species in known space. They need to understand that attacking human colonies has consequences. Sarah squeezed his hand. What did you have in mind? Marcus's smile was cold as winter starlight. First, we extract every bit of intelligence we can from that ship. Ship class, crew complement, operational parameters, command structure. Then we use that information to hunt down the rest of this raider fleet. And after that, we make sure the galaxy knows exactly what happened here. That a human colony fought back. That human warriors hunted down their attackers. That predator species are not safe when they threaten human families. Sarah nodded slowly, understanding the larger implications. You think this could change things? Change how other species see us? Marcus looked out at the darkening sky, thinking about the vast galaxy beyond their small colony, about the countless threats lurking in the darkness between stars. Humanity was still young in galactic terms, still seen as newcomers and potential victims by older, more established predator species. But maybe it was time to change that perception. Maybe it was time to show the galaxy that humans were not prey, but something far more dangerous when cornered. I think, he said quietly, that this Krillian just made the biggest mistake of its species' history. And when we're done, every predator in the galaxy is going to know exactly what that mistake cost them. The Krillian ship hung in the outer asteroid belt like a metal predator, its dark hull drinking in the starlight from Kepler 442's twin suns. The vessel was a thing of brutal efficiency, built for raids and quick escapes rather than sustained combat. Its crew of 12 warriors waited in growing impatience for their scout's return from the surface. Vextar, the ship's hunting leader, studied the tactical display with mounting concern. Zix should have returned hours ago with the harvested specimens. The plan had been perfect: strike during shift change when the humans were most vulnerable, extract valuable breeding stock, and depart before the soft-skinned prey could mount any meaningful resistance. But the communication silence stretched on, and Vextar's predatory instincts were beginning to whisper warnings. Zix was their finest hunter, veteran of 40 successful raids across 17 star systems. If something had delayed his return, it meant complications that hadn't been accounted for in their intelligence gathering. Contact from surface? Vextar inquired of the communications operator. Negative, Hunt Leader. Scout Zix has not responded to status queries for 1 hour, 37 minutes. Vextar's claws drummed against his command chair, a nervous habit from his youth on the killing grounds of Krylos Prime. Something was wrong. He could feel it in his bones, taste it in the recycled air of the ship's bridge. But what could possibly go wrong on a simple harvesting operation against defenseless human colonists? Scan the settlement, he ordered. Look for energy signatures, unusual activity. The sensor operator's scales shifted to match his console display, a sign of intense concentration. After several minutes, he looked up with confusion written across his reptilian features. Hunt Leader, readings are inconsistent. Settlement shows normal power grid function, normal thermal signatures, but I detect recent plasma discharge near primary target structure. Vextar leaned forward. Plasma discharge meant weapons fire, and humans weren't supposed to have weapons capable of generating such signatures. Their intelligence indicated that New Haven was a peaceful agricultural colony, defended by nothing more sophisticated than sonic deterrents for local wildlife. Clarify. What type of plasma discharge? Heavy military grade, Hunt Leader. Consistent with ship-mounted anti-personnel systems or heavy personal weapons. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of life support systems. Vextar felt the familiar chill that preceded either great victory or catastrophic defeat. In his experience, when prey started shooting back with military-grade weapons, the situation had already evolved beyond simple harvesting parameters. "Prepare strike team," he commanded. "If Zix has encountered unexpected resistance, we extract him and complete the mission with overwhelming force." The weapons officer's scales darkened with anticipation. "Hunt leader, perhaps we should simply eliminate the settlement from orbit. Plasma bombardment would leave no witnesses and minimal evidence." Vextar considered this option. It would be safer, cleaner, more in line with standard Krillian doctrine, but it would also mean losing valuable slaves and leaving questions that might eventually reach the Galactic Council. Better to determine exactly what had gone wrong, extract Zix, and complete the original mission parameters. Negative. We investigate personally. This may be isolated incident. No profit in destroying valuable cargo over single setback. 20 minutes later, Vextar stood in the settlement's main square with 8 warriors at his back, trying to understand what he was seeing. The human colony was too quiet, too still. Even in sleep cycles, there should be movement, sounds of life and activity. Instead, the settlement felt like a tomb. "Spread out," he ordered. "Find Zix, find the humans. Determine what has transpired here." The warriors moved with predatory grace through the empty streets, their enhanced senses probing every shadow for signs of life or threat. They found the first bodies near the security station, 2 human males, apparently cut down as they responded to some unknown alarm. The wounds were consistent with Krillian claws, confirming that Zix had at least begun his mission. But where were the other humans? Where were the screams, the panic, the chaos that always followed Krillian raids? And where was Zix? They found him in the storage shed behind the Chen residence, or what was left of him. Vextar stared at the headless corpse in growing disbelief, his mind struggling to process what he was seeing. Zix had been killed by plasma fire at close range, his body showing evidence of multiple hits from a heavy military weapon. "Hunt leader," one of the warriors called from outside the shed. "You must see this." Vextar emerged to find his subordinate standing over another body, an old Earth canine, throat slashed with surgical precision. But it was the arrangement of the corpse that made his scales ripple with unease. The animal had been moved after death, positioned carefully so that anyone approaching the shed would find it first. Bait, Vextar realized. The humans set a trap for Zix, but that made no sense. Humans were prey species, soft and weak and unused to violence. They didn't set ambushes for Krillian warriors. They didn't fight back with military precision and heavy weapons. They certainly didn't kill the galaxy's most feared predators in single combat. Hunt leader, another warrior reported from the main house. Structure shows signs of forced entry, struggle. Female human was definitely present, likely the primary target. And now? Gone. All humans gone. Settlement evacuated with efficiency and speed. Vextar's mind raced through tactical possibilities. The humans had somehow detected the infiltration, organized a response, killed Zix, and evacuated their entire population in a matter of hours. That level of coordination and competence was utterly inconsistent with everything the Krillians knew about human capabilities. "Scan for life signs," he ordered. "Full spectrum analysis. These prey animals cannot have simply vanished." The portable scanners revealed the truth within minutes. The settlement wasn't abandoned. It was occupied by unknown contacts hidden in defensive positions throughout the colony. Heat signatures showed at least 20 individuals concealed in buildings, trenches, and improvised fortifications. The humans hadn't fled. They were waiting in ambush. "Hunt leader," the sensor operator reported nervously. "Detecting weapon signatures. Human colonists are armed with military equipment." Vextar felt the situation slipping beyond his control. Nothing in their intelligence had suggested that New Haven possessed military capabilities. The settlement was supposed to be defended by farmers and shopkeepers, not trained warriors with proper equipment. "Fall back to extraction point," he commanded. "We require additional intelligence before proceeding." That's when the first shot rang out. The plasma bolt took one of his warriors in the chest, dropping the Krillian before he could even scream. Vextar spun toward the source of fire and saw something that chilled his predatory heart. A human male in improvised combat gear, wielding what looked like military-grade equipment with obvious competence. "Contact!" Vextar roared, even as more shots began ringing out from concealed positions. "Multiple hostiles! Return fire!" The Krillians scattered and sought cover, but the humans had chosen their ambush site well. The settlement's layout funneled the raiders into a killing ground, where every angle was covered by interlocking fields of fire. These weren't panicked civilians shooting randomly. This was coordinated military action by trained personnel. Vexstar found himself pinned behind a storage container, alien blood streaming from a grazing wound on his arm. Two of his warriors were already down, killed by precise shots that spoke of battlefield experience. The remaining Kralians were scattered and isolated, unable to coordinate their superior individual capabilities against human tactical doctrine. "Who are you?" he called out in Federation Standard, hoping to buy time while his warriors repositioned. "This is Peaceful Colony. Where are soldiers?" A human voice answered from somewhere to his left, calm and professional despite the chaos of combat. "We are the soldiers, asshole, and you just made the worst mistake of your miserable lives." Vexstar felt his worldview shifting as the implications hit him. These weren't civilians who had somehow acquired military weapons. These were human military personnel disguised as peaceful colonists. The entire settlement was an elaborate trap, designed to lure Krillian raiders into a carefully prepared killing ground. But why? What possible strategic value could a single Krylian raiding party have to human military forces? "Unless you knew we were coming," Vexstar called out, understanding beginning to dawn. "This entire colony is intelligence operation." "Took you long enough to figure it out," the human voice replied. "Your people have been raiding human settlements for months. Time we paid you back with interest." More plasma fire erupted from human positions, forcing the surviving Krylians deeper into cover. Vexstar's tactical computer was screaming warnings about ammunition depletion and degrading defensive positions. His warriors were trapped, outnumbered, and facing opponents who clearly understood Krillian combat doctrine better than the Krillians understood human capabilities. "Hunt leader." One of his subordinates reported over combat communications. "Request immediate extraction. Situation compromised beyond acceptable parameters." Vexstar tried to contact his ship, but received only static in response. The humans had jammed their communications, cutting off any possibility of orbital support or coordinated extraction. His raiders were isolated and fighting for survival against an enemy that had turned every assumption about human weakness into a lethal deception. That's when he saw him, the human who had killed Zix. Marcus Chen emerged from behind a building with the casual confidence of a born predator, his heavy plasma rifle held with the easy competence of long experience. The man's eyes swept the battlefield with tactical awareness that belonged on a Krillian hunting leader, not a human colonist. "Surrender now," Marcus called out, his voice carrying clearly across the square. "Drop your weapons and you'll be treated according to Galactic Council protocols. Continue fighting and we'll kill every last one of you." Vexstar's response was instinctive, a roar of challenge that had cowed prey species across 17 star systems. But Marcus Chen didn't flinch, didn't show the slightest sign of intimidation. Instead, he smiled with predatory satisfaction and raised his weapon. "Your funeral," the human said simply. What followed wasn't a battle, it was an execution. The humans moved with clockwork precision, eliminating the scattered Krillians with minimal risk to themselves. They used overwhelming firepower at maximum range, refused to engage in close combat where Krillian advantages might matter, and showed no mercy for wounded enemies. Within 10 minutes, every member of the raiding party was either dead or dying. Vexstar found himself propped against a wall, alien blood pooling around his ruined legs, watching as humans emerged from concealment to secure the area. They moved like professional soldiers, checking bodies, collecting weapons, coordinating through subtle hand signals that spoke of extensive training. Marcus Chen approached and knelt beside the wounded Krillian, his expression clinically professional. "You're dying," he said without preamble. "Medical attention might save you, but only if you cooperate. Tell me about your ship." Vexstar laughed, tasting blood. "Humans do not intimidate Krillian warriors. Death before dishonor." "Your choice," Marcus replied calmly. "But before you die, there's something you should know. This wasn't random. We've been tracking your people for months, learning your patterns, studying your methods. This colony was specifically established to draw you into range. The implications hit Vexstar like a physical blow. Impossible. Humans do not hunt Krylians." Marcus's smile was cold as vacuum. "We do now. Your species made one critical mistake when you started raiding our colonies. You assumed we would just take it, that we would accept being victims. But humans don't work that way." He gestured to the tactical display on his wrist unit, showing the positions of what Vexstar now realized were additional human forces surrounding the settlement. "We've been preparing for this for 6 months. Every detail planned, every contingency covered. Your ship is already surrounded by concealed orbital platforms. Your crew will be given one chance to surrender. Vexstar felt his predatory confidence finally cracking. This is not how prey species behave. That's the point, Marcus replied. We're not prey. We never were. Humans became the dominant species on Earth because we learned to turn our weaknesses into strengths, to use our intelligence and adaptability to overcome bigger, stronger predators. Every species that tried to hunt us learned the same lesson you're learning now. The dying Krillian's eyes widened as understanding dawned. You mean to hunt us? Hunt the hunters. Marcus nodded slowly. Your people have terrorized peaceful colonies across this sector for too long. Time someone taught you what it feels like to be prey. Time you learned that humans don't just survive. We adapt, we plan, and we hit back twice as hard as we were hit. Vexstar tried to speak, to voice some final defiance, but his strength was failing. With his last breath, he managed a whisper that carried all the terror of a predator who had finally met something worse than itself. The galaxy will know. Yes, Marcus agreed quietly. They will. And that's the point. As the Krillian leader died, Marcus stood and activated his communication system. Control, this is ground team leader. Primary objective complete. All hostiles eliminated. Proceeding to Phase 2. Acknowledged ground leader. Orbital assets report target vessel secured. Crew surrendered after demonstration of platform capabilities. Intel extraction team standing by. Marcus looked up at the stars, thinking about the Krillian ship that was even now being boarded by human marines. Soon they would have detailed intelligence about raiding operations, ship capabilities, command structures, and operational bases. Information that would allow humanity to take the initiative to begin hunting the hunters with the same methodical precision that had just eliminated this raiding party. Sarah emerged from the command bunker where she had been coordinating communications, her face flushed with satisfaction and adrenaline. How did it go? Better than expected, Marcus replied. They bought the deception completely. Never suspected this was anything but a normal civilian colony until it was too late. She nodded, looking at the alien bodies scattered around the square. Think this will make a difference? Send the message we wanted to send? Marcus considered the question, thinking about the implications of what they had just accomplished. For the first time in galactic history, humans had successfully hunted and eliminated an entire Krillian raiding party. The psychological impact of that reversal would ripple through predator species across known space. It's a start, he said finally. One message delivered, a few dozen more to go, but every journey begins with a single step. Sarah squeezed his hand. The galaxy is about to learn something new about humans, isn't it? Marcus looked at the stars again, thinking about the vast reaches of space where other predator species were still thinking of humanity as easy prey. That was about to change in ways that would reshape the balance of power across the galaxy. Yes, he said quietly. They're about to learn that when you threaten human families, you don't just make enemies, you make predators. And humans are very, very good at being predators when the situation calls for it. The interrogation chamber aboard the human research vessel Determination was deliberately austere. White walls, bright lighting, and a simple table between two chairs. Nothing that might inspire confidence or comfort in the alien prisoner seated across from Commander Elena Vasquez. The Krillian crew member, one of 3 survivors from the captured raider ship, sat with the rigid posture of a predator, trying to maintain dignity in an impossible situation. Tell me about your next target, Commander Vasquez said calmly, reviewing the data tablet in her hands. We already have the navigation logs from your ship's computer, so lying will only make this more unpleasant for you. The Krillian, who had identified himself as sectile, regarded her with undisguised hatred. Humans do not frighten Krillian warriors. Death before betrayal of pack. Vasquez smiled without warmth. That's admirable, really. But you're missing the point. We're not trying to frighten you. We're trying to educate you. She activated the wall display, showing surveillance footage from the ambush at New Haven. The Krillian watched in growing distress as his hunting pack was systematically eliminated by human tactical precision. The footage was edited to emphasize the complete dominance of human forces, the professional competence of the colonial defense team, and the absolute helplessness of supposedly superior Krillian warriors. This is what happened to your hunting leader and his pack, Vasquez explained clinically. 12 trained Krillian warriors, eliminated by 23 human civilians in less than 15 minutes. No human casualties. Perfect tactical execution. Sectal's scales shifted color as stress patterns rippled across his hide. Impossible. Vexstar was greatest hunter in 3-star systems. Humans are prey species, soft and weak. Were prey species, Vasquez corrected. Past tense. Times change and species evolve. Humans have spent the last 6 months studying Krillian tactics, learning your weaknesses, developing countermeasures. We know how you think, how you fight, how you die. She changed the display to show technical schematics of Krillian ships, weapons, and armor, all labeled with human tactical assessments and vulnerability analyses. The prisoner's eyes widened as he realized the depth and scope of human intelligence gathering. Your ship's database contained operational records for 47 successful raids across 12 human colonies, Vasquez continued. Detailed logs of tactics used, casualties inflicted, cargo taken. Very thorough record keeping. It will be invaluable for tracking down your other hunting packs. The Krillian leaned forward, his predatory instincts finally engaging with the reality of his situation. You mean to hunt us? Hunt the entire clan structure. Not just your clan, Vasquez replied. Every Krillian raiding group operating in this sector. Every ship, every base, every support facility. We're going to systematically dismantle your entire operation until raiding human colonies becomes too expensive to sustain. She activated another display, showing a star map with red markers indicating known Krillian bases and patrol routes. The scope of the intelligence network was staggering, representing months of careful surveillance and analysis. We've been watching you for longer than you realize, Vasquez explained. Every raid you conducted was monitored, recorded, analyzed for patterns and weaknesses. New Haven was specifically chosen as bait because our models predicted it would draw multiple hunting packs into range of our response forces. Sectal stared at the display in growing horror. This is impossible. Humans do not possess such capabilities. Your species is young, inexperienced in galactic warfare. Young, yes. Inexperienced, no. Vasquez smiled with professional satisfaction. Humans have been fighting wars for our entire evolutionary history. We're very, very good at killing things that threaten us. We just haven't had proper motivation to demonstrate those capabilities on a galactic scale. She changed the display again, showing battle footage from human military actions across known space. Tank columns crushing alien positions. Orbital bombardments reducing fortified positions to glass. Human marines clearing hostile ships with ruthless efficiency. Your raids gave us that motivation, Vasquez continued. When you started targeting human families, taking out children for your slave markets, you stopped being a law enforcement problem and became a species-level threat. And humans have a very specific response to species-level threats. The footage shifted to historical records, human forces eliminating dangerous predator species on dozens of worlds, orbital strikes reducing entire ecosystems to sterile ash, the systematic extermination of any life form that posed a significant threat to human colonization efforts. Sectal's breathing was becoming rapid and shallow as the full implications began to sink in. You mean to exterminate us? Eliminate Krillian species entirely. Only if you force us to, Vasquez replied calmly. Personally, I'd prefer to reach an understanding. Your people are clearly intelligent, clearly capable of adapting to new circumstances. There's no reason this has to end in extinction. She leaned forward, her expression becoming serious. But make no mistake, if Krillian raids continue, if your people persist in treating humans as prey, then yes, we will exterminate your entire species. We have the capability, we have the motivation, and we have the strategic patience to make it happen. The prisoner sat in stunned silence, processing information that challenged every assumption about human weakness and passivity. Finally, he spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. What do you want from us? Complete cessation of raids against human colonies. Return of all human captives currently held in Krillian slave markets. Reparations for damages inflicted on human settlements. And full intelligence cooperation regarding other predator species operating in this sector. Vasquez activated a final display showing treaty documents already prepared by human diplomatic teams. These terms are non-negotiable. Your species can choose to accept them and survive, or reject them and face the consequences. But the time when Krillians could attack humans without retaliation is over. Sectal stared at the treaty terms, his mind reeling from the speed and scope of human planning. How long have you been preparing for this? Since the first human colony was attacked by your people 18 months ago, Vasquez replied. We've spent that entire time studying your tactics, infiltrating your communication networks, identifying your bases and supply lines. Every raid you conducted gave us more intelligence, more motivation, more justification for what's about to happen. She stood and moved to the viewport, looking out at the stars where human warships were even now moving toward their targets. In approximately 6 hours, coordinated strikes will begin against every known Krillian facility in this sector. Your hunting fleets, your slave markets, your refueling stations, all of them. By tomorrow, your entire operational infrastructure will be either destroyed or under human control. The prisoner made a sound that might have been a whimper. This is madness! Galactic Council will intervene. Other species will not permit human aggression on such scale. Vasquez turned back to him with a cold smile. The Council authorized these operations after we presented evidence of systematic slave raids against human colonies. Turns out, most galactic species don't approve of predator races that hunt sentient beings for profit.
Who could have predicted that? She returned to her seat, her expression becoming almost sympathetic.
Your people made one critical error, Sectal. You assumed that because humans seemed peaceful and passive, we would remain that way when threatened.
But human history is full of instances where peaceful civilizations became absolute terrors when their survival was at stake. The display shifted to show ancient Earth footage, human armies sweeping across continents, cities burning under siege, entire civilizations rising and falling in the span of decades. The violence was spectacular and terrifying in its scope and efficiency. We didn't become the dominant species on our homeworld by being passive, Vasquez explained. We became dominant by being the most adaptable, the most determined, and when necessary, the most ruthlessly violent species in our ecosystem. Those traits didn't disappear when we reached the stars. Sectal was trembling now, his predatory confidence completely shattered. What happens to my crew? To me? That depends entirely on your cooperation, Vasquez replied. Help us locate every human captive in Krillian hands, provide intelligence on other raiding operations, assist in dismantling your people's slave trade infrastructure. Do that and you'll be repatriated to Krillian space when this is over. And if we refuse? Vasquez's smile was razor-thin. Then you'll spend the rest of your lives in human prisons, watching news reports about the systematic destruction of everything your species has built. Your choice. The interrogation continued for another hour, but the outcome was never really in doubt. Faced with the complete collapse of everything he believed about human weakness and Krillian superiority, Sectal provided detailed intelligence about slave markets, raiding schedules, and operational hierarchies. The information would save hundreds of human lives and accelerate the dismantling of the Krillian threat by months. When it was over, Commander Vasquez made her way to the ship's communication center, where urgent messages were arriving from human strike teams across the sector. The coordinated assault on Krillian infrastructure was proceeding ahead of schedule with minimal human casualties and devastating effectiveness. "Ma'am," the communications officer reported, "Admiral Chen sends his compliments. The Nexus station has been secured with all slave pens intact. We've recovered over 300 human captives, most in relatively good condition." Vasquez felt a surge of satisfaction. Nexus Station was the largest slave market in this sector, a sprawling complex where sentient beings from dozens of species were bought and sold like livestock. Its liberation would send shockwaves through every predator organization in the galaxy. Casualties? Minimal, ma'am. The Krylians were completely unprepared for coordinated assault. Most facilities surrendered after the first demonstration of force. That was the beauty of the plan, Vasquez reflected. By waiting, by gathering intelligence, by preparing thoroughly before striking, humanity had turned what should have been a costly campaign into a series of precise, surgical strikes. The Krillians had been so confident in their superiority that they had never prepared for serious resistance. Any response from other Krillian forces? Fragmentary communications suggesting panic and confusion. Several hunting fleets have gone to ground in deep space, apparently afraid to approach any system that might contain human forces. Vasquez smiled grimly. Fear was a powerful weapon, and the Krylians were learning what it felt like to be afraid. Within days, word would spread through the galactic underworld that humans were no longer passive victims. Every predator species would have to recalculate the risks and benefits of targeting human colonies. "Patch me through to Admiral Chen," she ordered. Marcus Chen's face appeared on the main display, older now and bearing the insignia of the human fleet, but still recognizably the man who had defended his wife against a single Krillian raider. That incident had been the spark that ignited humanity's transformation from prey to predator. "Lena," he said with genuine warmth, "congratulations on breaking their intelligence network. The information you extracted is proving invaluable." "Thank you, sir. Any word on the political response?" Chen's expression became serious. Mixed as expected. The Council is officially supportive, but several species are expressing private concerns about human military capabilities. Apparently, our efficiency in dismantling the Krillian threat is making some people nervous. Vasquez nodded. It was inevitable that humanity's demonstration of military competence would cause anxiety among species that had grown comfortable with the status quo. Peace-loving races worried about human aggression, while predator species worried about human retaliation. Any specific concerns we need to address? The hegemony is requesting limitations on human fleet deployments. They're worried about the precedent we're setting for dealing with problematic species. The Confederation is asking for technology sharing agreements, apparently hoping to benefit from our tactical innovations. Chen paused, his expression becoming contemplative. But the most interesting response is coming from the smaller prey species. They're requesting human protection agreements, wanting us to guarantee their security against other predator races. Vasquez considered the implications. If humanity became the galaxy's protector of peaceful species, it would fundamentally alter the balance of power across known space. Instead of being seen as newcomers and potential victims, humans would become the guarantors of galactic stability. Are we prepared for that responsibility? Sarah thinks we are, Chen replied with a slight smile. She's been working with the diplomatic corps on a comprehensive security framework. The idea is to create a network of mutual defense agreements that discourage predation while promoting peaceful expansion and trade. The plan was ambitious and far-reaching, exactly the kind of long-term strategic thinking that had made the anti-Krillian campaign so successful. Instead of simply reacting to threats, humanity was positioning itself to shape the future of galactic civilization. What about the Kryalians themselves? Any response from their government? Chen's expression darkened. Official silence so far, but intelligence suggests internal upheaval. The failure of their raiding operations has apparently triggered some kind of succession crisis. Several clan leaders are blaming each other for underestimating human capabilities. Think they'll try for revenge? Doubtful. The demonstration of our capabilities was pretty convincing. More likely, they'll withdraw to their core systems and rethink their entire approach to galactic relations. The age of casual predation against human colonies is over. Vasquez felt a deep sense of satisfaction at that assessment. In less than 2 years, humanity had gone from being random victims of alien raiders to being the species that other races turned to for protection. It was a remarkable transformation, built on intelligence, planning, and the kind of ruthless efficiency that had made humans the dominant species on Earth. Orders for the next phase, sir? Continue intelligence gathering on remaining predator threats. The Krylians weren't the only species treating human colonies as hunting grounds. Time to send a message to every potential threat in the galaxy. Chen's smile was cold as starlight. Humanity is no longer prey, and it's time the galaxy learned exactly what that means. 5 years after the New Haven incident, the Galactic Council chambers on Nexus Prime bore witness to a sight that would have been unthinkable just a decade earlier. Admiral Marcus Chen, representing humanity in full military dress, stood before representatives of 47 different species as they formally ratified the Terran Protection Accords. The treaty that would reshape galactic civilization was about to become law. Sarah Chen, now serving as humanity's chief diplomatic officer, watched from the gallery with quiet satisfaction. The journey from that terrifying night when a Krillian raider had threatened their small colony to this moment of galactic transformation had been remarkable in its scope and speed. But then, humans had always been good at adapting to new circumstances. The motion to ratify the Terran Protection Accords is hereby approved by unanimous consent, announced Council of Veltar, the Centauran who served as current council president. Let the record show that this day marks a new era of peace and security for all peaceful species. The chamber erupted in a mixture of applause, relief, and in some cases barely concealed anxiety. The smaller species that had been frequent targets of predation were celebrating, while the remaining predator races looked distinctly uncomfortable with the new reality. The Accords didn't just protect human colonies, they extended human military protection to any species that requested it and met basic criteria for peaceful behavior. Marcus stepped forward to address the council, his bearing still that of the soldier who had once defended his wife against impossible odds. But now he spoke for a species that had become the galaxy's guarantor of peace through strength. Honorable delegates, he began, his voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. Today we formalize what has already become clear through actions rather than words. Humanity will no longer tolerate predation against peaceful species, not against our own colonies, and not against the colonies of our allies and friends. He gestured to the display behind him, showing a tactical map of human fleet deployments across known space. The scope was staggering. Humanity had gone from a minor frontier species to operating the largest and most advanced military force in the galaxy. Some have expressed concern about human military expansion, Marcus continued. Some worry that we seek to impose our will through force, to become the very predators we once fought against. To those concerns, I say this: judge us by our actions, not your fears. The display shifted to show the results of 5 years of human intervention in galactic affairs. Slave markets dismantled, raiding operations eliminated, peaceful trade routes protected, and refugee populations relocated to safe worlds. The statistics were overwhelming in their demonstration of human commitment to protective rather than predatory behavior. In the 5 years since we began active military operations, human forces have liberated over 50,000 sentient beings from slavery. We have eliminated 16 major predator organizations and forced dozens more to abandon their raiding activities. We have protected over 200 colony worlds from attack and facilitated the establishment of 30 new peaceful settlements. Ambassador Kretak of the Altarian Confederation stood to speak, his crystalline form reflecting the chamber's lights in prismatic patterns. The Confederation acknowledges humanity's beneficial influence on galactic stability, but some among us remain concerned about the precedent being set. What guarantees do we have that human power will not eventually corrupt human intentions? Marcus smiled, an expression that had once terrified alien predators but now carried only quiet confidence. The same guarantee that has always protected the galaxy from human aggression, Ambassador. We police ourselves. He activated another display, showing the internal structure of human military and civilian oversight. The system was deliberately transparent, with multiple layers of accountability and civilian control over military operations. Every military action is subject to review by civilian authorities. Every deployment requires approval from elected representatives. Every use of force must be justified to the people we serve. Humans learned long ago that unchecked power corrupts, regardless of initial intentions. Sarah felt a surge of pride as Marcus outlined the safeguards and limitations that humanity had built into its expanding role. These weren't the actions of a species seeking dominion, but of one that had learned hard lessons about the responsibilities that came with power. But more than institutional safeguards, Marcus continued, we have motivation to remain protectors rather than predators, because we remember what it was like to be prey. The chamber fell silent as the weight of those words sank in. Every species present understood the reference, the time when humanity had been seen as weak, vulnerable, ripe for exploitation. The transformation that had followed was a reminder that circumstances could change, that today's predator could become tomorrow's victim. We remember the fear, Marcus said quietly. The helplessness, the rage of watching innocents suffer while stronger species did nothing to help. We remember what it feels like to be abandoned by those who could have made a difference. And we have sworn that no peaceful species will ever feel that abandonment again, while humanity has the power to prevent it. Representative Zixara of the Draconian Empire, one of the few remaining predator species with significant military capabilities, stirred uneasily in his scaled coils. And if peaceful species abuse this protection? If they use human military might to settle old scores or pursue aggressive expansion? Marcus turned to face the Draconian directly, his expression becoming stern. Then they discover that human protection comes with human oversight. We don't protect aggressors regardless,